This time on UK Brewery Project, it's Joseph Holt. Joseph Holt was the son of a weaver who was born in Unsworth in 1813. He started his career at Harrison Strangeways Brewery. In 1849, he married Catherine Parry, who was a few years older and was instrumental in helping him finance a small brewery behind a pub in Manchester. After 6 years at what we would probably call a microbrewery, in 1885, Joseph moved into the Dutch Duchy or Duchy Bridge Brewery. The brewery had a 12-barrel brewing system, mash tuns, cellar space, and much more. In 1860, it was time for him to move on and expand again. This time he moved to Empire Street, which is still based in Manchester, and he took out a 999-year lease on the land. And this is where the brewery remains to this day. The land has its own well water, which was used to brew the beers, and which they still, to some extent, use today. The brewery started out supplying beers to local pubs until a year later in 1861, where they acquired the Wellington Hotel in Eccles, which was the first of many pubs that they were to own. In 1875, Joseph's son Edward began working at the brewery, and in 1882, control of the brewery was passed fully to Edward, who was at that stage aged 36. The brewery had probably about 20 tied pubs as well at this stage when it was handed over to Edward. In 1886, Joseph Holt died at age 73. His wife Catherine died 6 years later, aged 82. Now, before we continue, let's crack open a beer that we've got. Now, I'm not sure what was the first brew. I'm certain it was a mild or a bitter or even a Burton ale at that stage. But what I do know is that 6X has been brewed for over 100 years, and that makes it one of their oldest brews that I have available or on hand on this table here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack open the 6X here. I think prior to this week, I'd only had 2 hoots from Joseph Holt, but I have been drinking their beers this week, and I had this beer last night, and it was a good one. I really enjoyed this beer. Beautiful, beautiful head on the top there with this. Oh, it smells so great. That really smells good. Oh wow, loving that. All right, here we go. So we have a very malty smelling beer, tucking straight in. Oh yeah, bit of fruitcake it feels like slightly. So this is actually one of their highest rated beers and Untapped. I think it's only surpassed by the elusive 6X Reserva, which is a bottle-aged version of the 6X, coming at 6.6%. This one comes in at 6%, and so it's their big hitter of a beer, but it is a good beer. It's a good one to start with, a nice high ABV at that stage. Oh yeah, it is a really good beer. Sorry, it is really good beer. There's carbonation in there, but it's just a nice roasted maltiness on that. By the end of the 19th century, under Edward, the brewery had doubled their pub estate to 42, which were mostly based in Manchester and Salford. The brewery employed 60 people, and were outputting 40,000 barrels a year, which is 11.5 million pints. Huge numbers. In 1901, a bottling plant was installed at the brewery and used to bottle their bitter and Burton ale and mild. In 1908 and 1909, Edward was elected Lord Mayor of Manchester. Edward was a bit of an activist and philanthropist. In 1914, he raised £20,000 to fund the Holt Radium Institute, which would give radium treatment to patients in local hospitals. The Holt Radium Institute in later years merged with the Christie Hospital. So since the founding in 1914 of the Holt Radium Institute and subsequently Christie Hospital, the Holt Brewery has been making donations to that institute. And so that would mean over 100 years they've been supporting that institute, which is impressive, as I say, very impressive. Edward Holt was knighted for his work in 1920. For the brewery, though, in 1922, they installed a new 1,900 square foot boiler to replace the original boiler from the 1860s. In 1928, Sir Edward Holt died at the age of 78. By this stage, he'd been running the brewery for 46 years. He passed control of the brewing onto his second son, who was named Edward. So the Edward I'm going to talk about now is the son Edward. So the brewery managed to survive the war years, and in 1952 the business was floated and became a limited company. In 1953, Peter Kershaw, who was the nephew of Edward, he had joined the company actually after World War II and rose up the ranks to become a brewery manager. But by 1968, Peter had become the chairman. In that same year, in 1968, Edward died, unfortunately. Peter himself was a supporter of real ale and refused to change the company's way, especially with the keg revolution in the 60s and 70s. Though it should be noted they did brew a lager in the 70s and they still do to date. In 1973, the original mash tun was replaced, and in 1977 the brewery was expanded with an investment of £500,000, which was used to double production. In 1980, Richard Kershaw joined the family business after having worked as a brewer for Whitbread. In 1992, the brewery was expanded again to keep up with demand, and again they were looking to double the capacity. And at this stage, after using the boiler for more than 60 years, it was replaced with a new one. Now, I can't seem to find any reference to how much they were brewing at this stage, but I'm assuming it was quite a bit. Now, Peter had a lot to do with the continuing success of the brewery. He ran the pubs as No Frills, much like Sam Smith's did over in Yorkshire, and he aimed them at the working class. A pint of mild could be picked up for under £1, and this sort of low price appealed to students, who then in turn would become loyal customers at the pub, along with spreading the name of the brewery when they returned back to the cities where they came from. In 1999, to celebrate 150 years since Joseph Holt first brewed at his own brewery, the brewery launched 1849, which is a 4.5% bitter, and I'm going to crack that one open. Don't think it's the exact glassware, but this will do, this stage. Sorry, had to cut there, Mrs. asked me a question. So there we go, this is 1849. It's an extra special bitter. Again, nice little malty nose to it. Good colour on it, so obviously this one is much darker, much darker. Much stronger as well, but this is really good looking ESB. Oh, that is a good ESB. That is delicious. I do like that one. So, I say, launched in 1999 to celebrate 150 years. In the following year, so 2000, Richard Kershaw became the CEO and took the company back into private ownership. And unfortunately, at the same time, Peter, who had been working at the company for over 50 years and sort of steered it through that, I say, difficult time for regional brewers, 60s, 70s and 80s, he passed away. In 2002, a new 30-barrel mini brew house was installed, which allowed them to produce smaller seasonal batches along with trials of some new beers. By 2017, the brewery was capable of producing about 500 barrels a day, which is 144,000 pints. They produce roughly a quarter of a million to 300,000 pints a week. And their average turnover was about 60 million, and they were still expanding their pub estate, with the current number of pubs being about 125 at that stage. Now, I can only assume that from the 90s, the amount of beer produced and sold had dropped off, as they were only producing about 13 to 15 million pints a year, which is not far off the figures from before World War II, though, perhaps the beer sales after World War II had dropped, but they'd done a double expansion of the brewery to keep up with demand. So you'd expect figures in the 90s to probably be about 20 million. I'm just wondering, I think this is probably generally in line with other big regional brewers across the UK due to the changes in the pub and beer market in the 2000s. They lost, sales, but they still seem to be doing fairly well. In 2017, Richard's daughter Jane Kershaw joined the business, making her the 6th generation of the family, and she was followed shortly after by her brother Andrew in 2009. In 2019, it was their 170th year, and the brewery announced they were going to be building a microbrewery at Manchester Airport, where the beers will only be sold on the airside, i.e. those are checked in and ready to fly. This was due to open in spring 2020 in the new sort of 1 billion terminal at Manchester Airport. So, due to COVID, airport expansion plans were delayed a year. And I'm not sure, though, if the venture is opening now that that expansion has opened. I haven't seen anything to make that announcement yet. So I'm not sure if they've sort of backed off or not. But all I can say is Joseph Holt Brewery seemed to have survived the last year, and they recently even made purchases. They saved one of Manchester's oldest pubs, showing they still have the capital on hand to be buying up buildings like that. But that sort of brings us up to date. So I'm now going to run through the sort of core beers that they stock. So in cask, you can find bitter, which is 4%, mild, which is 3.2, and IPA, which is 3.8. One thing to sort of note about Joseph Holt, though, is they still rack their ales into the larger 36-gallon casks. A standard is 9 gallons, so they do the 36-gallon. But they also do the hogshead, which is 54 gallons, about over 400 pints, that is. That's crazy, and it must weigh a ton. If we look at the rest of the core range that they do in cask and bottles, we have Two Hoots, which is a 4.2% golden ale. We have Humdinger, which I've got at the end over here, which is a 4.1% honey beer. We have also Manchester Brown. I'm going crazy, it's the one nearest to me, which is a 3.8% ale. We have Maple Moon, this one over here. No, that's Maple Gold. I didn't get Maple Moon. That's it. I kept thinking I've got two. So Maple Moon is a 4.8% ESB. There's a bit of maple syrup chucked in. And Maple Gold is the 4.3% golden ale. That's a bit of maple chucked in it, just like the other one. In keg and in bottle as well, they have Crystal, which is a 3.8% lager. They have Crystal Gold, which is a 4.5% lager. And they have Diamond, which is a 5% lager. They also do some nitro beers. They've got a Smooth, which is a red ale at 3.8, and Black, which is a dark ale at 3.4. And they recently launched something called Northern Hop, which is their pale ale, 4.2%. Now, I know I haven't really touched these. It's still quite early. I do really enjoy both of these, but I'm going to move them just to the side for a moment because I'm going to crack open the Crystal Gold. I've had a few of these and it's strange. It really is strange. So this is in a clear glass bottle. I open it and it's just a smell of skunked beer. It's like the hops have been light struck and you're just smelling, oh my God, it's very skunky. It's like weed smoke at that stage. It is unbelievably skunky, and it's going to stink this room out, trust me. And it's just bizarre. It's a bit off-putting because it smells so skunky. And as I say, it's because it's in a glass bottle. But take a mouthful of it, there's none of that skunk flavour at all. It is a lovely malty lager. Unbelievable. It's just the sort of thing that surprises you, maybe. Your nose is leading you in thinking, oh dear. And that's what I was thinking first time I poured it. But you drink it, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to bring one of these back in. Leave the other one just behind at the moment. 6X back in. Talking of 6X, in bottles only, from what I understand, they do 6X and 1849. And they have some seasonal beers in cask and keg as well. Reaching awards, I can't seem to find much on awards to do with the ale, cask ales and all the rest. They seem to be very much promoting their lager wins. So these were rebranded anyways. They've won the International Keg Lager Award, gold, I think gold on it, at the International Brewing Awards. So International Brewing Awards, International Keg Lager. So Crystal Lager, which is the one I'm drinking now, won gold in 2011. And this was followed by Diamond at the International Brewing Awards in 2013. And then they have Black Gold, which won its category in 2015, but I couldn't find what category it was. And then Diamond won again the International Keg Lager in 2017. They won gold for that. So they're quite proud. They do mention them on here. And I think this is why this was rebranded to be Crystal Gold, I think, because it won gold. I think that's what happened. What does it say on the table? Not table, on the chart on top. No, it just says Brewing Awards 2011. I think that's why they renamed it. That does smell delicious, 6X. But yeah, I've been really impressed with the Joseph Holt range. I haven't had Humdinger and I haven't had the Golden Moon, Maple Gold. Those are the only two I haven't had on this table. The rest I have really enjoyed. I'm not a biggest fan of Two Hoots in general, but there you go. But this has been the UK Brewery Project. This has been Joseph Holt. I wish you all the best. Take care.